Coming up on this week's edition of Her Motorcycle Adventures. Hello to all my internet friends and welcome to my world. Well, the bit you see from a motorcycle anyway. Hey, I can assure you the best bits do include a motorcycle. Hey, what are you giggling at? It's true. Anyway, let's move on quickly before I stick my other foot in my mouth. Today I'm leaving the beautiful historic town of Richmond. It's only about half an hour or so outside of Hobart City. It's the kind of place you head to when you want a bit of yesteryear. And here at the local caravan park is where I stayed for a few nights. Today I'm headed across to the place called Port Arthur, or more accurately, the Port Arthur Historic Site. Now, those of you who have been following my journey long enough will recall that I visited a place called the Coal Mines Historic Site, which is where some of the more unlucky convicts from Port Arthur were sent. I sat on a pile of rocks with tears in my eyes as I recalled the horrendous lives of the prisoners forced to work there. I'm hoping that this place moves me equally as much. I want to really feel what it was like in that era. I want to leave with goosebumps all over and a sense of thankfulness for what I call life nowadays. Coal Mines Historic Site was a pile of rocks compared to the Port Arthur Historic Site. I'm hoping with its global acclaim that it delivers. And the one thing I like about these road trips is that you can pull in at some beautiful places and stop for a coffee, and this place delivers. It's called Eagle Hawk Neck, and yes, the coffee and cake were really good. Found my way through that maze. And I'm at the entry point of Port Arthur. Now I've got a little guide here and we'll follow that as we go. Okay, so I'm just approaching the main area. There looks to be plenty of signs. I'm going to go and that's the main prison there. And but I do have a little guidebook here, which is quite comprehensive. It's actually got a picture of the whole place, so that's quite good. And it's got some information in here. So I think first, actually I should go to the asylum first. After my life, I should even sign myself up to go into one of those sort of places. I underestimated how big this place actually was, but as you can see, it's quite well manicured. And I think just behind me, that would be the little ferry that does the cruise. I think I'm going to have my day cut out for me today. I love myself a good asylum. I think the biggest frustration is that I can take footage outside the building, but I actually can't go into the building, which is kind of a little frustrating because you can't really feel much of the place from outside the building. But yeah, it's just me. I think the other impression I've got on the place is it's all very manicured, isn't it? And I doubt it would have been this pretty back in the day. You know, I don't mind a bit of reality, a bit of rusticness to it, and I don't know, perhaps it's a little bit too manicured for my liking. I didn't expect it to be so, so well maintained, I guess you'd say. But anyway, oh, I lie, I think there is an entrance in there. Okay, I lie, you can get into the asylum, albeit a cafe. Really? I mean, I sound like I'm really critical, but it's not my job to necessarily be the tourism industry's best friend because, really, did they need to make it a cafe? How much food and drink do people need to eat? There is a cafe at the main entrance. It would have been nice to see the asylum as it was, albeit reconstructed after the bushfire. Now it's a cafe. I don't know, it just, I don't know, a bit distasteful if you ask me. Just return it to, near its glory, as it were. But a cafe there, really? Cafe in an asylum, hey, I'll order some crackers. Here's a real picture of how it looked back in the day. In fact, this photograph, it says, is 1870. Well, just reading about this paupers complex, it kind of makes a bit of sense to me as to what to do with former convicts when they would find it hard to get employment, and also having a community or family to support them, neither of which happened. And that's kind of sad because there's no way back into society, and that's kind of really sad. So this complex here, well, this is a newer complex because the older one was destroyed in a bushfire in 1895. And what do you do with former convicts? It was interesting because the Walmart's story was actually quite positive, and quite a few of them managed to find employment. They had employable skills they learnt on the farm there, but here, once you've done the crime, there's really no way back into society. Kind of really sad in a way, because some of the crimes weren't really violent crimes. Some of them were just stealing a loaf of bread, and then you got to be punished for that for the rest of your life. Kind of the world we live in, isn't it? But imagine not getting a second chance in life. You're left to rot until your dying days. For stealing a loaf of bread. We humans sometimes are the freaking worst, really. Okay, here's a challenge for me. Apparently, as you go into this prison, you've got to be quiet. That is going to be rather a challenge for your girl here. If you see the sign here, so at least they're having some sort of respect to the past, as it were, even if the asylum was turned into a cafe selling crackers, sorry. Again, couldn't help myself. Anyway, they want you to feel the energy of the place in here. Like I said, you know, when you come to these places, you want to feel and see the good, the bad and the ugly. Yeah, that's my opinion anyway. So I said I'd give you my 2 cents worth, and I am so. This place is creepy. I think they're putting the noises in there just to scare the shit out of people like me. This place is creepy. I could imagine in this exercise yard here that it would take quite some time in order to get your 10,000 steps up. Yet I guess if you got fit and skinny enough, you might be able to scale the wall and escape. When you visit a place like this, it's good to remind yourself that you aren't talking about nameless statistics. Each of those statistics was a person, and each had a name, a story. And that's what I, during my travels, am interested in. The backstories, those nameless faces who built this country I call home. Okay, having walked through the separate prison, which was rather kind of creepy, it had lots of stories about the different inmates and also the people that tried to, reform the prisons. And so there were some very interesting stories in there. And it's really funny because You know, how much of a place do you keep looking as original as you can, and then how much do you kind of make it look like a walk in ye old English gardens, you know? Here's something you may not know. Though I'm focusing on the convict aspect of the region, Port Arthur was much more than a prison. Military were housed here, officers lived here and raised their families. Government officials had quarters here. There were shops, doctors, churches. The list goes on. And here there's around 30 historic buildings, all in various stages of restoration, waiting for you to investigate. Port Arthur does have historical significance, and I can see why. When I walk through the ruins of these places, I feel the fragments of lives long gone before me. So, in case you are ever inspired to escape this hellhole, and I can't think why you wouldn't be, you do have to get past the dog line. The dog line, you say? What is that? Let me share with you what that is. Okay, so my mate here behind me isn't real, but many years ago, he was. There was actually a line of dogs across this 30-metre peninsula where I'm standing, known as the dog line. How original. Anyway, from across this body of water, right across here, you'll see the ocean, is 30 metres. And they had a line of dogs across here to prevent the convicts escaping from Port Arthur. Now, they also had actually little platforms in the water where the dogs would be on also, so if the convicts tried to escape via water, they would be less successful in doing so. Now, this was in operation till 1877 when the convict settlement was closed down, and then this land was sold off to private settlers. So there you have it. So you're literally spending your day chained by ankle cuffs to the person next to you, and you're put to hard labour, and then at night you're relegated to this little cell here to spend the rest of your evenings, and that, not much of a life to aspire to, that's for sure. Ultimately, unlike most prison systems of the modern era, this one, like pretty much all in Australia at the time, was built largely on the premise of forced migration, and often for relatively small crimes. I've read of people being sent here from England, often for the most basic of crimes. Imagine you've been caught stealing some food simply because you're starving, and the next thing you're on a rickety old wooden ship en route to the other side of the world. Before you know it, you are chipping away at rocks or felling trees, mining underground for coal, or some other labour by day and in a cell of an evening, all to build settlements for others who aren't as unfortunate as you. Your only crime was being poor, You see, this settlement always had a commercial aspect to it. Convict labour was cheap, and the supply was almost endless. Convicts were involved in everything from coal mining to building ships. They had quite the enterprise going on. I bet this place had its fair share of prayers from people wishing they were anywhere but here. I doubt every convict had a chance to stand in here, but if they could, I have a feeling I know what they'd be praying for. It certainly was once a very beautiful church. Ironically, and perhaps unexplainably, my camera's played up when taking some of these images. Walls were distorted, shadows and images appeared where they shouldn't, yet not more than 20 metres away from the church, everything worked again. I didn't change a thing, I didn't wipe a lens or anything. It's always possible that it was the lenses, the position of the sun, moisture, or any number of things, but equally, perhaps it wasn't. There is believed to be a ghost in the parsonage, which is just a few metres away from here. I can't help but be astonished with how pristine and perfect this place is. I can see why people come to Tasmania with the singular goal of checking out what's here. I know that in the current era of COVID, the world is a little upside down, and this is affecting tourism statewide and countrywide, and here it's no exception. Usually cruise ships, which would stop just out there, and hundreds, if not thousands, would swarm into these immaculately presented gardens and set about exploring, and then they're off. From that perspective, it's perfect here. It's perfectly designed to accommodate the masses. But I guess that comes at a cost. But was I moved? Not really. It's large and impersonal. It's spectacularly beautiful, but I won't leave this place feeling humbled. I won't carry with me the feeling that, just for a moment, that I understood the anguish of those who've suffered here over the years. And I guess, seeking freedom myself, in some strange way, I wanted to feel their anguish, their desire for what most of us take for granted today. Interesting, my thoughts on Port Arthur, having visited it now for 2 days, what my initial thoughts were about the place and what I walk away with, having felt and learnt. And I think I feel that the place, having been to Lime Bay, where I really genuinely felt the energy of the place because it was literally untouched. And here it's kind of a conundrum. It's sort of, I feel like the tortured souls within the walls of this prison. And I feel this place is like the tortured souls behind those walls. It's sort of conflicted in a way between the needs of the travelling public to what is authentic and rustic and real, as like your Lime Bay was, for instance. For my $40 worth, it was bang for buck, and it was really interesting learning about the convicts and the different people that this place was home to over the many years. And I think the balance is kind of fairly good and definitely worth the price of the admission, that's for sure. But I kind of feel that the place is, I would say, for want of a better words, a manufactured experience. I was told when to feel scared by the noises in the prison, and I think without that, I probably would have felt the energy in the prison cells on my own, and I feel like I wish I was left to interpret the place through not being told what to think and feel. It's like going on the ghost ride at a fair park. You pay your admission and you get scared, and then let's go get some fairy floss. And I kind of feel that this is kind of the same. It's a manufactured sort of sense of reality, as it were. But for $40, I guess there's a line between entertaining the masses and authentically real. And for me, it's on that line.